I should have the questions.
Welcome to Fave podcast, episode number 9. It's our weekly podcast where I host a guest and talk about their background, and then we delve into the 5 topics of the Fave 5 newsletter, which are books, food, music, sports, and humor. And I'm pleased to have with me today as my guest Sue Hanley, who is a professional colleague in our field of knowledge management. And I've known Sue a long time. I think we first really interacted much was around the planning of the annual SIKM Leaders Dinner in 2009, which was in San Jose, California. And Sue volunteered to take over that scheduling and the logistics of that event, which became an annual event for many years, where we gathered together while we attended the annual KMWorld Conference. And people who were in our community got the chance to dine together and talk and converse. And that went on for a number of years. And Sue was the champion of that effort. So over the years, Sue and I became good friends. We would see each other every year at KMWorld, now held in Washington, D.C. And we'll see each other again this year, right, Sue?
We sure will.
So, Sue, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's start out with some of your background. When and where were you born?
I was born in Albany, New York.
And when?
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 Like, you mean the year?
Well, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
1956.
1956. Okay, well, you're younger than I am, so that's good. And where have you lived since then?
I lived in Albany with my parents when I was a little kid, and then we moved to Rochester, New York, which is effectively where I grew up. We did about 6 months in Long Beach, New York, and then the rest of my childhood was in Rochester. And then I moved to Baltimore for college and lived there for a couple of years after college as well. And then I moved to the uh, DC suburbs in Maryland, and we lived in Greenbelt for a while. And now, for the last 30 something years, I've lived in Bethesda, Maryland.
And you also spend time in California.
Oh, right. And I have a place in California because two of my three grandchildren live there. And so I have my home in Bethesda and then an apartment in Sherman Oaks in the valley where I am right now, actually. So it's really great to be able to not even have to bring a suitcase when I go to visit my West Coast kids.
So, who was in your family when you were growing up?
I had a mom and a dad until I was 15 when my mom died. But for the most of it, it was mom and dad, and then I have a younger sister and a younger brother.
And did you have any extended family around?
No, well, in Rochester, it was
Mm.
us, and the reason we lived in Rochester was because my mother's first cousin, who I called my Aunt Lee, lived in Rochester, and she, on and off, kind of lived with my mom when she was growing up. And when we moved away for a little while, she did not like it, and she told her husband to give my father a job so that they could move back, so that we could move back. And so not only did he give my father a job, but they became business partners. And so I had my close cousins, and that was it in Rochester. It was my Aunt Lee and Uncle Julian, their 5 kids, my cousins, and then my grandparents were in Manhattan and in Albany, and we just spent a lot of time back and forth.
What did your parents do?
My dad, when I was growing up, the business he was in with my Uncle Julian was a construction business, home building. And he built the houses that we lived in and the entire neighborhood I lived in. So they were home builders, but he was a lawyer when he went to law school after college. And at age 50, decided he really wanted to practice law. And he went back to law school at NYU, which is where he went, flew there once a week. And I think he decided he had more frequent flyer, more miles getting to and from class than anyone in the history of NYU law. So at 50 years old, he got another degree, an LLM in taxation, and then joined a law firm and then moved to a different law firm where he became a partner. And when he retired as an attorney. My mom, until I was born, way back in the day, was a teacher. And then when she was pregnant with me, she was, I guess, forced to retire. And then did tons of volunteer work. She was a phenomenal pianist, and she played piano for what was it called? The Children's Asthma Research Institute in Rochester. She did lots of volunteer work until she got sick, and she passed away when she was 41 years old. So
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. The question about your dad and his law, did he have two different law degrees or did he have to take the bar a couple of times? How did that go?
did not have to take the bar, and again, because he had when he after he passed it, he kept up his
Okay.
law degree, and he always said that law was a really helpful thing, a helpful degree to have in business. It certainly made it easier for him to negotiate contracts, although he did have a personal lawyer, and but he was able to participate in those conversations. And then, as a lawyer, having been a businessman, he did a lot of business law, and so it was super helpful. So he didn't have to retake the bar, but he did feel that he wanted to get more current education. And it's kind of interesting that he was able to do that as an adult. And so I always hold that up to my kids as an example is, your first career doesn't always have to be your ending career. And what you really want to do is find something that you love, and then it doesn't feel like a job. And I think my father, when the building business felt like it was declining, he wanted to ensure that he had an income, and he loved being an attorney. And so it really allowed him to return to what he really loved because he never thought he could make enough money initially as a lawyer, which is why he did other things.
So, as a lawyer, when you got into any kind of disagreements with him, was he difficult to argue with?
Well, my father used to call me a Philadelphia lawyer. I was really good at it. I think I inherited that. And for a while, I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, I got into law school after college and decided to defer my admissions
Mhm.
because I just wasn't ready to continue school and then took a completely different path.
So, what did you like to do when you were in elementary school and middle school and high school?
Oh my gosh. Um, well, very into arts and crafts. When I was about 10 years old, I had a little business that my mom would sell the crocheted hats that I made at her hairdressers. And I had a nice little business going for a long time. And I learned how to sew really young. And so I made most of my own clothes when I was like in middle school. I met a lot of my own clothes and then did that a lot when my kids were little and for some reason sort of gave it up. And my new plan now is after 20 years, now that I'm a grandmother, I'd like to make clothes for the kids. And I am taking my sewing machine to the get serviced. It was in commission during the early part of the pandemic because I was making a lot of masks. And I think I may have like overused it. So now it needs a little tune up, and I'm going to make sure that that happens next week, actually.
So, how did you get interested in sewing at an early age?
My mom was also a woman of many talents, and
Mm-hmm.
she um, was a really, really good seamstress and also made like costumes when we were in plays and things like that. And so obviously I wanted to do that. And back when you and I went to school, they had courses called home economics. And
Right.
one of the things you did in those courses was learn how to sew and use a sewing machine.
So, besides that, were there other things you liked to do in school?
Well, in school, I was a math science kid for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all the AP sciences and math that I could take, I took. And because when I was originally in school, I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was absolutely on that track.
So, you wanted to be a doctor and a lawyer, and what else?
Well, wanted to be a doctor and went to Johns Hopkins mostly because I thought, oh, what a good place to go to undergrad if you want to be a
Mm-hmm.
doctor. And then after I saw that organic chemistry book and thought, oh my God, I cannot carry that thing around. Um, I was a little less enamored. And of course, everyone was pre-med. I mean, a third of my class was
Mm-hmm.
pre-med. Like, this is really not for me. So then I said, all right, well, maybe I'll be a lawyer. And I was absolutely determined to do that. And because I wasn't quite ready to go to law school, and I had a lot of really wonderful opportunities, but I decided to go to Georgetown Law, deferred my admissions and got a job working at a bank. And I was doing a rotation, I was a management trainee. And when I landed in the computer science in the IT department, I had an epiphany and basically was like, oh my God, this is really what I want to do. So completely changed my mind. And the bank would not pay for law school if I went while I was working, but they would pay for business school.
Ah.
So I decided, all right, well, then I'm going to go to business school because I think right now, this was guess it was like sort of the early 80s. This is a great time to be a woman in technology. I always really loved math and science. My favorite class in college, hands down, was symbolic logic. And I thought, this maybe is a great place for me to be. And, that's really what got me started in my career in tech. I got an MBA with a concentration in information systems management, which is what it was called at the time, and just said, I want to be a consultant, but eventually I'll find a company and I'll be the CEO and all that. And then but I'd have to find a company that I really liked. And I really never found a company that I liked more than being a consultant. And so that's been my career for almost 50 years now.
So when you were very young, did you want to be a doctor then, or did you have something else in mind?
Now I know when I was 7 years old, I was going to be a teacher, of
Okay.
course.
Okay.
That's what you played with your dolls.
Yeah.
But very early, I wanted to be a doctor. And I think a lot of it was because my mom was sick. And so I was going to cure cancer. I was very ambitious.
So where did you go to college? You've already mentioned that, but
Yeah, so my undergraduate degree is from Johns Hopkins.
okay. And then graduate degree.
I went to the University of Maryland in College Park, although I was living in Baltimore at the time. So schlepping to College Park was not fun.
And you mentioned, was it your first full-time job was at a bank?
My first full-time job was at a bank because I had a lot of science credits when I decided not to be pre-med. And the only place I could only do a major I could use the science credits without having to start over was psychology, which is really a scientific discipline at Hopkins. So I was a psych major. Turns out, psych degree, not that easy to get a job. Go figure. So the only place I could get a job was as a management trainee at the First National Bank of Maryland, headquartered in downtown Baltimore. And I worked there for 2 years, and they paid for, maybe I was there 4 years. Anyways, they paid for business school. And the minute and the nice thing about going to College Park is they had a really good recruiting program. And the minute I had job offers in hand, which was about January of my last year, I said bye-bye to the bank and finished school full time for the last semester.
So take us through your career after that, some of the highlights that followed.
So I went to work for a company called American Management Systems, which was started by five of the whiz kids in the McNamara Defense Department. And these guys were absolutely brilliant. And when I joined the company, I had 800 people. And it was an amazing place. It was a consulting firm. I had offers from what were then the big eight, but I loved AMS and the vibe about it. And the woman who recruited me ended up being one of my closest friends. And it was just a place where it was just great for young people to start a career, to learn about consulting, to learn about so many different things, because that's the best part about being a consultant. And I stayed there for 18 years. And in that time, towards the latter part of my career, when I started having children, I moved into more of an internal role in the Center for Advanced Technologies. And one of the programs that we were responsible for was our software development lifecycle. And I got to work on writing that, having been a consultant and managed a lot of projects at that point. And at one point in the early 90s, I was in a meeting with the CEO, and he was talking about how all of the big, at that point, there might have been 4 or 6 consulting firms were getting recognized for what they were doing in knowledge management. And it wasn't right because knowledge management was built into our DNA. In fact, you could not get promoted to the senior principal level unless you demonstrated leverage. And by that, they meant how you were using your expertise and knowledge to benefit other people and the firm as a whole. So, absolutely in our DNA. And he said, we need to get more recognition for this. And we were sitting in this room, and we're going to build a knowledge center, and we're going to bring our clients there, and we're going to form communities around not just technical disciplines, but project management and software development and all the not programming related, necessarily related things that we do extraordinarily well. And we're going to need someone to run that. And he's looking over at my boss and my boss's boss, and who's going to do that and who's going to create this knowledge center physical location and then manage the experience over time. And he looks over at me and goes, "Well, I guess you will, Sue." And that literally was how I landed in KM. And as they say, the rest is history. So I ran that program at AMS, working for the most amazing group of people until 2000 when and everyone was leaving to go to, the dot coms. And I'm like, oh, I need to do that too. And I had met people through my knowledge management travels because our CEO wanted recognition. And so I became like the face of recognition. They hired a speaking coach to spend supposedly 2 hours helping me, prep for conferences. And she ended up spending 8 hours with me. I don't think I even had a bathroom break that day. And they wanted, and so I was submitting to speak at conferences, and we were getting a ton of recognition because our Communities of Practice program was really cool, and we were doing some really great things. And that's actually how I was in all of the places where you and I met. And when I left AMS, I went to a small, teeny tiny consulting firm that was about 200 people to do strategy work around KM and intranet portals, because at that time we were a premier user of Lotus Notes. The firm I joined was the Microsoft Partner of the Year in 1999, and that's how I transitioned into the Microsoft space. But all largely, from that initial sort of KM experience, leading the initiative, and then consulting in KM when I was at AMS, and then doing consulting for intranets and knowledge management at Plural. And then from there, we got acquired by Dell. I think it was in 2003. And I did not like being what I used to call the wart on the pimple of the nose of a hardware company, this teeny little thing. So I did what I typically do when I'm trying to make a big decision. I asked a million people for advice, including every independent consultant I knew, a lot of them in the KM space. And it took me a while to be ready. And then I finally, in 2005, hung out a shingle and established my own company. And I've been doing that ever since, largely focused on consulting in the Microsoft space, balance between KM strategy and internet portal development. So that's the short, long version of my career history.
So when you say KM, which is knowledge management, when someone asks you what that is or what you do, what do you tell them?
I usually, if they say, "What do I do?" I say, "Do you know what an intranet is?" I help organizations build intranets. And when they ask me about KM, I usually, to make it short, because obviously we could go on forever, I say, in a globally dispersed organization, you don't know who you don't know, and you don't know what they know. And knowledge management is about creating opportunities, not just technology, but opportunities to get the right knowledge to the right people at the right time, so that when you go out in an engagement, for example, if you're a consultant, in your little briefcase or your backpack, you have the rest of the knowledge of the firm with you, and you can deliver the best of what you know to every engagement. And you can not reinvent the wheel. You can take the wheel and expand on it, but you don't have to start from scratch.
So when you give that explanation, do people generally nod and know what you're talking about?
Or they're tired of asking that question, or they don't want to hear anymore from me, or it's like, oh, let me move on. But yeah, I think it does kind of explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I found that people don't generally know the term knowledge management, but when you explain it that way, it makes sense to them. They'll generally go, yeah, I can see that. So along the way in your distinguished career as a Microsoft consultant, you've been a Microsoft MVP. What does that involve?
So, Microsoft MVP is an award Microsoft uses to recognize contributions to the community. It's really not about what you know, because I can't know everything about everything. I have a very narrow area of focus that I know a lot about. It's really about how you give back. Again, it's really a knowledge management if you think about it, or
Mm-hmm.
it's how you are contributing. It's recognition of your contributions to the community. In exchange for that, Microsoft has this community of MVPs to which they share insider knowledge, so that we can, because we are using their technology in the course of our work, provide feedback. and suggestions, both at the early stages and sometimes the later stages, going, oh gosh, you guys are really far down the line on that, but it's not going to land well. And sometimes we're right and they will make changes. And sometimes they're like, thank you very much. But it's a wonderful opportunity. And for me, it's when I worked at Dell, I sat on the Partner Advisory Council for Internet and Portals representing Dell at Microsoft. So I had a lot of insider knowledge and was able to be aware of things as they were happening. So when I left Dell, uh, as an independent, I did not have quite that inside connection. So being an MVP has helped me develop relationships with people at Microsoft so that I can get questions answered for my clients and help ensure that they're leveraging all the technology that we have available to us in the most effective way.
So over your career, you've had a chance to travel the world doing consulting. What are some of the more interesting highlights of that career?
Best place I've traveled for work, hands down, South Africa. And I've done that 4 times. And usually in conjunction with speaking at conferences. And I've been able to extend every trip to do a safari. And honestly, I have to say that it's the most beautiful country. The experience is incredible. I've been to basically Johannesburg and Cape Town, and I loved, and Kruger National Park, and just loved every minute of it. And that's been really cool. And then another really exciting trip was I was invited to speak at a conference in New Zealand in the summer, and I got to go skiing on August 11th. And as a skier, that was absolutely on my bucket list.
What are some hobbies or interests that you have? You mentioned you still are interested in sewing. What else do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, I'm learning how to play pickleball. That's on my agenda because I feel like, at 69 years old, you're supposed to be playing pickleball. I have played tennis competitively. I played in college. I played on a club team. And then, honestly, when I was employed, I was able to play daytime tennis matches. Since I've been on my own for 20 years, it's been really hard. So, the whole idea of, oh, you can manage your own time, you get the employee a month parking space every month. It's not as glamorous as one would think. But now that I am approaching the age where I would like to cut back a little, my goal is to introduce more let's say, sporting activities that I play with other people. Again, because my other sort of favorite thing to do is I am an obsessed Peloton rider. And I am part of that super obsessed Peloton community. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but I have a favorite instructor, and there's other people like me, and all you can't be around us because we're always talking about, our instructors, what we're doing, what class we like.
Now, how are you going to decide how long you're going to keep working as a consultant?
I actually have made the decision I'm going to work as a consultant until it's no longer fun. And there are things that I find that are less fun. And so the countdown clock started on my 69th birthday. So by my 70th birthday, there are aspects of my work that I don't think I'll do as much anymore because I just love the idea that I can pick and choose what I do. I think in order to sort of spend more time doing other things and traveling, as much as I love to do that, I don't want to work as much. So I'm going to be highly selective. But the best part about being a consultant is the projects aren't forever. Although the client relationships sometimes aren't, and you can get more projects, which I totally love as well. But I feel like I want to have more time to travel, to learn how to play pickleball, to do sports that involve other people. My friends that are retired are doing things like mahjong and bridge. I don't know if that's totally for me, but I'm going to try everything. Um,
Well, if you need a bridge instructor, I'd be glad to do that for you.
oh my God, that's awesome.
I've been having so much fun playing bridge online that was one of the benefits of the pandemic was that before that it was hard to find people to play bridge anymore, and now you can play with people in other places. You can play against the computer. It's been great.
Well, that's what actually I have a friend that was playing online with her mom and during the pandemic. And then one of my friends said that that's how she really learned how to play mahjong was playing online too. So I just need time.
Now, you had written, I think, three editions of a book about SharePoint. Did you ever think about writing another edition?
I will never write a book about SharePoint ever again. And not because I don't love, I mean, this is the product that has given me a career, and I love helping organizations use it more effectively. The problem is things change too quickly. And by the time you have written something down, there's something new to talk about.
Hmm.
What doesn't change are the fundamental foundations, the part that I care the most about, which is governing and your content, making sure the really good practices for keeping content current. And honestly, governance is the key to successful AI. And so I feel like, you know what? I have been focused on governance for the last 20 years, SharePoint governance for the last 20 years. It's all about me right now. You want to be successful with AI, you better come back to me and get that house in order because the if you have out-of-date content, duplicative information, things that are not reliable and trusted, I'm sorry, the AI agents you stick on top of that are not going to be effective. And so, yeah, so I think but
Which,
so the fact of the matter is, all that is changing so quickly that the best you can do is blog about it, but you can't write a book
okay.
other than about the foundation. So
All right.
it's not
Are you
happening.
thinking of any more writing, either blogging or writing another book on something
Well,
else?
it's funny. I mean, you played online bridge during the pandemic. I gave up my blog during the pandemic because it's just one of those things that was stressing me out.
Hmm.
And as much as I love to write, it was causing a lot of stress. And I was looking for ways to de-stress my life. And so I may start doing that again, but I'm trying to, I always felt a lot of pressure to write the blog and to get the chapter in for the book. And I know a lot of people, other people do not react that same way. It was really painful for me to do that. And I'm so, again, if I'm basically operating now under the if it's not fun, then you don't need to do it.
Right. Well, I endorse that approach. Let's move on now to the Fave 5 question. So we'll start with, what do you like to read?
I am an eclectic reader, and so I love, um, well, my favorite author of all time is Ayn Rand, and so all of those books I absolutely adored. I like science fiction. My other favorite book, Hail Mary, Andy Weir, fantastic book. I'm I love Janet Ivanovich and the whole Stephanie Plum series. I like that. I love reading. I now listen to more audiobooks than I actually read. I got into Audible before there were iPods, and I had a teeny tiny audiobook player. One of my clients actually recommended it to me, and it's been game changing. Every place I drive, if I'm grocery shopping, I am always listening to a book. And I've learned that I remember where I was when I heard something. So there's a connection to me between physical space and hearing that works better for me than reading. And so I read everything. I'm in a book group. I'll read whatever, whatever whoever's turn it is, I'll read whatever they pick. We just read a book I absolutely loved called All the Colors of the Dark. We tend to read literary fiction, although I made them read Hail Mary because I loved it so much. And then there's a bunch of other science fiction-y kind of books that isn't my book group's thing, but because I loved those books, you get to pick when it's your month, you pick. Um, so there, yeah. So as I said, I read almost anything and everything, mysteries, thrillers, anything that will keep me entertained while I'm walking. That's the biggie.
When do you decide whether you read or listen?
I will say that 90% of the time I am listening.
Okay.
Reading for me is articles more than books because every time I start to read a book, I fall asleep.
In addition to what you've already mentioned, any other authors or books you'd like to recommend?
No, I think I just hit my favorites of right now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next is food. What do you like to eat?
Oh boy, I'm really boring in this particular case. My kids tease me about this all the time. My desert island meal would actually be cottage cheese. I
It's the first time
never
I've heard
didn't
that one.
like it. No, I'm not very adventurous. And when we happened to be in South Africa actually on my birthday, and they asked the place, could they make me a birthday cake out of jicama and red pepper? Because it's my other favorite thing. Instead, they made it out of fruit, which I also love. But as I said, I'm like, I like food, but I am not an adventurous eater. I don't eat red meat. And so it's a really, it's a bad question to ask. I don't like spicy. My favorite spicy food is cottage cheese. Cheese. I guess cheese. I'll eat any kind of
Cheese.
cheese.
All right.
But yeah. Now, you don't
No,
talk food with me. I don't appreciate it enough.
you don't appreciate, but if you were going to have
I
a
eat
meal that
it.
had more than a cottage cheese, what else would you have?
Oh, it's really hard to say. I will tell you, I'm a little obsessed in LA. There's a restaurant called Mendocino Farms, which is a fast food, relatively healthy. And they have a salad with a scoop of goat cheese and chicken and like dried cranberries. Honestly, that is heaven to me.
Okay. Now, if we were going to have a meal together, obviously we've had a bunch of meals together at our annual dinners, but if we were going out, let's say in LA or back in Maryland, where would we go?
Well, I love to take people to Founding Farmers.
I
And
love
it,
that.
if you've been to restaurants in that family,
Yes, I have.
farmers and distillers, because the food is, there's a cedar plank salmon that I really love. Salmon's my favorite fish. And they have really interesting sides. And for my bacon eating friends, the bacon lollipops that arrive on a
Yeah,
pitchfork,
yeah,
everybody is like, that's to die
yeah.
for. And so it's really, my absolute favorite restaurant in DC is a Jose Andres restaurant called Zaytinya, and it's tapas, Greek style tapas, and they have the best pita bread, oh my God, in the world. And halloumi, a fried halloumi that is to die for.
All right. Well, you're showing some interest other than cottage cheese,
Oh
so
yeah,
that's
okay.
good to
But yeah,
hear.
so it's all in the cheese family.
Okay. What about in LA? Any place there that you would take me to?
It's funny because in LA, everything for me has been all about the kids and where they'll eat.
Yeah.
And a pizza place that my granddaughter absolutely loves called Pit Fire Pizza, and it's a little bit of a chain. And then there's a sushi place in Koreatown that is, oh my God, fantastic, called Noshi Sushi, and I'd probably take you there.
All right. I
No,
would
I don't
love
eat the raw fish sushi. I like everything else that
everything
all
else. Okay.
cooked fish sushi they make is spectacular, but my kids eat the other.
Do
You
they
know,
have a cottage cheese sushi?
no, they
No, they
don't.
don't have that.
It's
Okay.
too
Maybe
bad,
you
but
should.
they have a really good California roll. That
Okay.
actually should be on my list. I do
Oh,
love a
oh,
California roll.
good. All right. Moving on to music. Do you have a favorite song or musician or concert or album?
Well, since I've told you my age, you absolutely have to know that my favorite album of all times is Carole King. Now the name is escaping me, but
Tapestry.
Tapestry, of
Okay.
course, which has had a recent comeback.
Yeah.
And James Taylor, Carly Simon. I mean, these are my like
Yeah.
tastes. And contemporary music, I do like Maroon 5. I listen to a lot of Taylor Swift with my granddaughter because she's really in love with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Um, and one of their babysitters is a dancer for the weekend, and we do listen to a little bit of the weekend. And my granddaughter also loves Sabrina Carpenter, and so we're listening to her. So,
All right. How about a favorite song? Does any song come to mind that?
um, I still love You've Got a Friend, all the various versions of it.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. What was the first record you bought?
Probably Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life.
Okay. And what was the last concert you attended?
I read this question. I was trying to remember. Um, this is going to definitely date me. So when my husband was in dental school, I entered a radio contest and won 8 tickets to see Hall and Oates. And that was actually a really, really fun concert. And actually, now that I think about it, at one of the Microsoft conferences I go to, there's almost always musicians. And one year we saw Huey Lewis in the news, and that was really fun. Another year, I was at a Microsoft event where we saw Dr. John, and that was really great. Great. And most recently, I think it was the B-52s.
Okay. What sports do you enjoy watching?
Um, I honestly am not a big sports
Okay.
watcher. I'd rather be a sports player.
Player. All right. You mentioned that already. Any other sports that you enjoy playing?
Well, I like tennis. I'm going to learn how to play pickleball. That's sort of your retirement mandatory. I've had one
Yeah.
lesson so far. There will be more. I have taken thousands of dollars of golf lessons. I even because I'm left-handed and short. I had to chase all over the country to get left-handed petite clubs. And I
Hmm.
will say, after thousands and thousands of dollars of golf lessons, I suck big time. But so that may not be my sport, but all-time favorite sport, hands down, is skiing. And that I can still do, and I can still do it reasonably well.
Oh, good. Well, do you have a favorite memory of that?
Um, every memory of skiing is spectacular. And a lot of our family memories, those core memories for my core family have been around the Sundance Film Festival because when my kids were in school, it happened to be held during their 1 or 2 day winter break in between semesters. And Park City is the easiest ski resort to get to from the DC area because it's a direct flight if you're going to go west because it's a direct flight. Colorado, it's always, you land in Denver, 2 hour drive. But Park City, you land at the airport, 30 minutes later, you can be almost at the top of the mountain. 45 minutes, you can be at the top of the mountain. So we started going to Park City during what happened to be the Sundance Film Festival. And my daughter decided when she was 13 that she didn't like to ski and that she would rather go to the movies. And we actually gave her permission to go to the movies. But there was this core group of 4 families that we would go with every year. And we would ski, and we had tons of adventures. Lots of people we knew would be there because it was a 5 day school break in January. And again, it's so easy to get to Salt Lake and then to Park City. And that trip became how my daughter decided to become a movie buyer because she stopped liking skiing. And rather than kicking her out of the family, she still came with us on vacation, but went to the movies instead of skiing. The rest of us all skied, and my son rides. But she said, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to be a buyer. I want to be the person who goes to these festivals to bring movies to life. And she did all the homework. She found a place to go to college to specialize in that. She did her junior year abroad, specializing that. It was unbelievable. And that is, in fact, what she does. So that's core ski trip. Like my sports memories or my core memories are around skiing on that trip. And during the pandemic, obviously we didn't go, but Park City is going to lose the Sundance Film Festival starting in 2027. So I literally just bought our tickets to go back for one last time.
Where's it moving to?
Boulder.
How did you get interested in skiing?
I grew up in Rochester, New York, and so we had ski club, and we skied every Monday night. And my father, who one of his many hobbies was photography, and he would drive. We were only 20 minutes from a ski slope, and he would be willing to drive us there. And I was 12 or 13, and he would let me and my girlfriend Debbie go by ourselves we would allow him to take pictures. And so, hey, free ride to the ski slope. And so every Monday night, I went with the JCC bus. And on Saturdays, my dad would drive me and Debbie. And when he got sick of driving, one of Debbie's parents' friends, like our parents didn't ski, but one of the friends was a ski patrol. And he brought us a couple of times because his daughters didn't like to ski, but we did. And so living in a place where like driving someone to the mountain was the same as driving them to the mall
Yeah.
in the Washington area, that made it really easy to do.
And then you got your family into skiing? Is
Well,
that
they had no choice. I mean, the bottom line was that is my favorite thing. And I learned after we could afford to do it that I will not ski on the East Coast anymore because it's icy. And skiing on the West Coast is just in the Rockies. It's just a spectacular experience. And we started when our kids were little with the group of 3 and 4 families. And for a while, we had other people from other parts of the country joining us on our trips. And we started out by going local to Pennsylvania to Seven Springs, which is kind of the closest place to where we are. And then once we started in Colorado, we did a couple of years at Breckenridge. We went to Whistler a few times. But once we discovered how easy it was to go to Park City, 20 years in a row,
yeah.
uh, every winter at Park City.
And our final topic is comedy and humor. So what's a favorite comedian or a comedy film or TV show?
Well, there's an upcoming comedy TV show that I am hoping that everyone will watch. because my son-in-law has been in New York writing it, working on the writing team. And so the show is produced by Tina Fey, and it's called The Fall and Rise of Reggie Dinkins. I think that's what it is, but it stars Tracy Morgan. And Evan, my son-in-law, is a comedy writer, and so he wrote a movie called Fist Fight, which isn't maybe all my comedy, but I will say the language was, I took my dad because he really wanted to see it, and fortunately he slept through most of the F word, but there are some laugh out loud movie moments
Yeah.
in that movie. But so if you really ask me about sort of my favorite comedy movies, there's really three movies that are my go-to all the time. So Legally Blonde, which it's a classic and hysterical. 10 Things I Hate About You. I honestly, I'm a teenage girl when it comes to movies. And The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which has the single best line at the end of any comedy movie ever. And I'm not going to say what it is, but it is
Okay.
hysterical.
When is the show that's coming up, whether your son-in-law, when is it coming up and where will it
I think
be?
it's going to be on NBC, and I
Okay.
think it'll probably be sometime in November. Actually, I don't even know if they know the start
Okay.
date.
But it's imminent.
It is imminent. In fact, this week, Evan wrote an episode, and they're filming it this week.
Wow, that's exciting.
And so that means he has to be on set every single day. So it's pretty fun.
How about a favorite comedian?
Favorite comedian? Hmm. If I said Seinfeld, it's probably too obvious.
It's not a
Um,
bad choice.
no.
Okay. And who's the best at making you laugh and who can you crack up?
Well, right now, it's my 2.5-year-old grandson, Benji,
Hmm.
who I had him in hysterics today because he's obsessed. In the last, this is a 3-week thing, but he is obsessed with Spider-Man. And he's Spider-Man, and everybody else is like one of the associated characters to Spider-Man. And really, just this morning, after we had dropped his sister off at school, I think I was Doc Ock and he was Spider-Man, and I was chasing him down this little alleyway from the school to where we had parked the car, and I'm in hysterics. He's in hysterics, and as people were walking past us, they're in hysterics because this little 2-year-old is just this moment of pure joy, running uncontrolled and in character, being chased by his arch villain. So.
Is there anyone in particular that makes you laugh a lot?
Well, besides Benji, oh my God, he makes me it. I mean, I will say that the grandkids are pretty
They're
funny.
pretty good at. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you have them. Don't they make you laugh?
They do. They make me laugh. And then I had a discussion with one of them about who was the silliest. And we agreed that I was number one and he was number two.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, my granddaughter is 7.5 now, or almost 7.5, and she now is getting like puns. And she will say things every once in a while that are like, oh my God, you are your daddy's child. Yeah, she just has this really amazing sense of humor.
All right. Time for a story. What story have you chosen to share with us today?
Oh my God, I didn't think about a story. What's the story supposed to be about?
Well, you can pick any story you like. It could be a turning point in your life. It could be a touching memory, something that you experienced, an achievement you're proud of, a challenge you overcame, how you met your spouse, a tale about your family, a great teacher, unlikely situation you found in yourself, and or a family vacation or holiday.
Um, well, since we're on the subject of grandchildren, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I felt before. Like, I didn't feel I was ready to be a grandmother because to me, that always associated something with it being old. And it was a reminder of being old. And I will say that having grandchildren has really been transformational because first of all, they bring this light and joy to your life that you don't get from like your kids like have all this childhood crap that they're going to throw on you, but your grandchildren just love you, and you just love them back. And because you're the grandparent, sometimes you can relax the rules so they know there can be ice cream at Mimi's house. And so they really like coming. And I am having right now with my oldest grandchild the most wonderful time rereading the Harry Potter books with her. And so getting to sort of relive all those moments is really fun. And we took them to our family vacation this summer. We took all the grandchildren, the East Coast and the West Coast ones, to San Diego, and we went to Legoland and Sesame Place. And watching them experience the same things that my kids did when they were little and the joy, it's a way to just it's a moment that you just don't get any other way. And so as I was so like worried about, was I quite ready to become a grandparent? And I will say that it's an opportunity to relive things and experience joy in such a new way, that it's just a delightful opportunity, just a delightful thing.
I just recently read the book Nanaville by Anna Quindlen. Did you ever read that?
No.
It's about being a grandmother. I think you'd enjoy it. It was great. Every all of her experiences and insights were like uh, very recognizable.
Oh, it sounds like a good one. I'll put it on my Audible
There
list.
you go. Well, I'm going to finish up with a story about us, and this goes back to when I first encountered you, which was in 1998. So I had started in knowledge management full time in 1996 at Digital Equipment Corporation. And in 1998, there was a conference held in Boston. It was called the DCI Knowledge Management Conference. And Digital was willing to send me to that conference. So I went there. And that was like my first exposure to other people in the field of knowledge management, other than by having read books. And I remember being very impressed with the speakers at this event. And there were legends of the field. There was Tom Davenport, there was Tom Stewart, there was Larry Pruzak, there was Etienne Wenger, and then there was Sue Hanley, and you were at AMS at the time, and you were talking about what you had done with communities at AMS. And I remember seeing that and being so impressed, like, yeah, that's what I want to be doing at Digital. So I viewed you as one of the KM stalwarts from my very first conference, and then I'm so glad that later on we got to know one another.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for that story. It's really funny. So the two Toms who were sort of, big name people in KM, when AMS, when we were trying to sort of figure out what we were going to do, we actually paid them to come and talk to us and spend some time with us. We had them each, we were doing an internal knowledge conference. And one year we had Tom Davenport, and the other year we had Tom Stewart. And I was like, if you really want to learn, pay people to be your friends. And so and then subsequently, one of the most fun things was that Etienne and Richard Wenger both cornered me after one of those conferences because we had one aspect of our communities that they didn't really like. They didn't agree with. And I was able to convince them that why it was a good thing. And it was basically kind of what we call a pay to play, where if you wanted to continue to be a member of the community, the one requirement we had at AMS is that you had to make a contribution. Every year you had to contribute something that you did, a reusable asset that someone else could learn from. And they thought that wasn't really a true community. And I think they both kind of came around to the fact that it was a way to recognize and acknowledge the importance of sharing in a much more tangible way than just saying you should. We said you can be in and we'll give you all the benefits and you can come to our events and you can participate in all these things, but you have to. This is sort of what you do. And when you think about it, it can't be that hard. It is what you do for a living. All we're saying is pick something you're proud of and share it.
So that was Etienne Wenger and Richard McDermott. Is that you talking
Hmm.
about those two? Yeah,
Yeah. And
that's very
then,
interesting.
yeah, and they interviewed me for their book they wrote on communities of practice, and that was really fun. And I think, again, I was really a night by doing something that they didn't agree with. It actually gave us an opportunity. They came and approached me, and we had conversations about it, and that was actually how I got to know them. And so it was a really, our community, as you know, is just incredibly close and giving. And way back in those days, none of us really knew what we were doing because no one was doing it. And so you had to take your ideas from other people. And those conferences were so important for meeting people, building connection, getting other ideas. And so, when we go to KMWorld every year, it's like a, 25 or 30-year reunion of all the people that have been sort of that we've crossed paths with for so long and learned from.
Well, it's so important that I was inspired by those people that were already speaking and doing good work. And I think that's what we're trying to pass along to others now that people will come and hear us talk about our experiences. We're probably both at the point now where there's not that much we're going to find out about the field that we haven't found out before, but there's plenty of people that it's new and it's exciting to. And so I really enjoy the opportunity, to share that way. So, have any last remarks to make before we wrap up our podcast?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. It's been really fun to have this conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in about 2 months.
And thank you, Sue, for sharing with us today. And thank you for everything you've done in the field all these years and being such a good friend. I look forward to seeing you as well. And I'll say so long.
So long.